Hello, my name is SD, and welcome to Divine Solutions, where we believe the soul has a solution to all of life's issues. I came on today to share a story with you that I think that many should hear. There's currently attack on what I call the chosen ones, or people who are going through their spiritual awakening, and the attack is from occultists, dark witches, people into voodoo, and it's happening to people who are unaware, and they're unaware because they don't know what the signs are, or they might think that they're possibly losing their mind because it just in this reality it makes no sense, this type of things that are occurring. So I want to share my story in hopes to help others be aware, and maybe they'll have that aha moment where they said, oh well, that happened to me too, or I've witnessed that, and what can I do about that? And that's why I kind of created this channel, because I've searched the internet and I've been able to piece bits and parts, but it's not really one place that you can go to when you are actually under attack, or when you possibly think that things are going on that just don't make any sense. So my story starts, I would say, approximately 5 years ago. I went through a divorce, and I believe that's what triggered my spiritual awakening, and that triggered me to start doing healing. I got into Reiki work, also other energy work, and really delved deep into meditation, and just really was trying to heal myself. And the more that I tried to heal myself, I noticed that the universe would send people to me that would trigger me, or people to me that would help me to heal the things that I needed to heal within me. And so I went through, 2 relationships, and typically what I found is, if you are chosen or if you are empath, the people who usually come are narcissistic, and they do things to trigger you, and it's at some point you'll start to learn the lesson, and the lessons will come faster. Like you'll witness it faster. You'll start to trust your intuition more. And so I got out of one relationship, and kind of spent a little bit of time myself, and I would say that was when I was shining at my brightest. That's when I felt healed, I felt full of light, I had like a nice glow, and I really was on my spiritual path, which is to become a teacher. I wanted to become a spiritual teacher, teaching like ancient spirituality. And at the time, I started a spiritual coaching business. I did spiritual and life coaching, and I started getting clients, and I just seemed like I was on my path and I was aligned. And so maybe about a month or so, I started getting lonely. I was living in Connecticut at the time, and so I got on Facebook dating, and I met this young lady, and on paper everything was lined up. She was very spiritual. That was like my number one key point, to be with someone who was spiritual. And she also was a dentist. She was really wealthy, beautiful woman. So I thought this would be great. So we met, and we had dinner, and we really hit it off, and really had a really deep conversation on spirituality and life. And it was amazing how much our lives were similar. Like it was like almost, if she was telling her story, it was mine. And at the time, I thought she was possibly my twin soul, or my twin flame, excuse me. And so I was like, everything just seemed to align. So the next day, turned out that she worked in the town past where I lived. So she would pass my house every day. So the next day, during the day, I called and asked her if she'd like to come over for dinner after. And I said I would offer to do a Reiki session on her. And so she came, and she did a Reiki session, and it got late. And so she ended up just staying the night. And before I knew it, she kind of would bring stuff every day. And within, a couple weeks to a month, she basically had moved in. And at the time I was lonely, and, we would have nice, deep conversations about spirituality. And I really believed that, she was the one. And so a little time went on, and every so often I would notice that she had like these little bouts, like I guess like mental bouts. I think she was somewhat like bipolar, or she had some mental issues, and I could just kind of see it on her face. And so I was ready, we would have these little spats and fights, and I was ready to tell her to leave. And every time that I got ready to tell her to leave, something would happen. So the first case that would happen was she went to work, she as a dentist, and she was doing a treatment on someone. And I had made my mind up that night that I was going to tell her she had to leave. And she calls me about 10 o'clock, and you hear like sirens in the back. And she's like, "You're not going to believe this. Somebody just died in my chair." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Somebody just died in my chair." And I'm like, are you serious?" She's like, "Yeah, the ambulance is coming. She's coded, and she died. I was doing a procedure, and we stepped out the room for a minute and came back, and she was unresponsive, so we had to do CPR, and I think she's dead." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, I gotta go. So I hang up, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, who dies at a dentist's office, And so she came home, and you could see she kind of looked distraught. So I didn't bring it up. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't say anything. And all night, she just didn't say a word. We woke up in the morning. I was walking her down to her car in the garage, and she just looked at me and busted out crying, like released all emotions and just put her arms around me. She said, "Please don't leave me." She's like, "I love you. You're all that I have." And like, I was like, what did you say to that? Like, somebody who's, in that situation, what do you really say? What can you say to that? So I said, "No, I'll be here for you," or whatever. But it was like, in hindsight, that's where the first hook was put in me, and that they use manipulation and a lot of mind manipulation, mind games. And that's where, like, I felt sorry for her, or I felt as if I had to save her. And I think in hindsight that I've been in other relationships like that, but this was different because it was more like a spiritual connection. And so I believe that was her first sacrifice, or the first, I guess, test, I would say, into this dark world that she was entering. As far as I know, there could be more, just like people, because I'm sure there's many people who weren't as spiritually aligned or could feel energy as I do. And so there's probably more victims. I honestly don't know. I do know that one person that she was supposedly looked for, I looked them up, I couldn't find them anywhere. So I don't know if I'm the first or how many there is, but definitely this is something that she has done before. She is what I would consider a master occultist, a master witch, knows dark magic, knows how to work with energy, and the things she can do can destroy a person's life, and it almost destroyed mine, So some time would go on, about another 2 months, and I was into French bulldogs. I actually breed French bulldogs, and I had a really dog. I love this dog. Akasha was her name. I flew to California, brought her back, and she was like, that was my dog. And she knew that I had a lot of love for this dog. And so one day she asked me to move up, help her do some moving at her home, and up in Binghamton. And so we went up there, and she's like a hoarder. So she has all this stuff or whatever. So we packed the dogs in the back. The car was air conditioned. We packed everything up. And so we're heading back. And so when we get back to the apartment, I open the car, and my dog is dead. Tongue is hanging out of his mouth. I picked her up, no sign of life. And I just like start almost crying. And she comes out, and she's screaming and yelling, and there's a lot of people in the parking lot. I'm like, please, just be quiet, just go upstairs. And so I go upstairs, and I'm like, why is this happening? Like, why is this happening? Like, this is about 2 months after the lady died. I'm like, why is this happening? And it was just like a black cloud went with her wherever she went. It was like her karma was so deep that she just kept doing wrong and building karma. And that at some point, I believe, like, her karma started to rub off on me. And so that was her second sacrifice, right? And so then I believe that so things kind of would calm down and stuff, and she would always like throw vacations. She was very wealthy, so she like spoiled me with lavish dinners and dates. Like, it's just like money was not an issue. And so I can admit that I kind of got caught up into that lifestyle, and like the lifestyle that her family had, that I kind of always dreamt to be about that, but I never realized at what price it would come at. And so we were off and on, and it came to a point where my apartment lease was up and I needed to get another apartment. And so at the time I didn't have anywhere to go, and like I said, we would have like, weeks where everything was fine, and then there'd be like chaos, And so we agreed to kind of move in together and be like, I guess, like roommates and stuff. And so that is when I would say that the real attacks started. I think what they do is they have to spend time to get to know you. They get to know your psyche, your what are your fears. They get to know, like, they get into your energy. But she always had like this funny stare, like she was almost like she was there, but she was somewhere else, right? And that I would find out later, that she had the ability to like see into people's lives. Like she was like almost like a psychic or like a medium, but she could actually see into my life or see into my future. And that she was so good at it that she predicted that one day that I would be wealthy or whatever, and that at some point she decided that she was gonna do something called destiny swapping. Like she was gonna go into the future and pop in and steal whatever my destiny was or my abundance was. But I was very naive spiritually, and I didn't know anything about this. And it also was going hand in hand with my spiritual awakening, which, is your journey alone. Just the journey alone would be hard enough, but I was going through the journey and also being under attack, which I believe is by design. I believe she was sent here to stop me, to stop me from doing this, to stop me from spreading the word, from stopping my potential to be a teacher, to heal people. It used to make her jealous when people would just come to me and I would talk to them, and she would say, "Why do people come to you? Like why do you have to talk to everybody?" Or she would say, "If I was a man, I would like to be like you." Like a very jealous, envious energy always. And it's like, but on the same token, she was very loving and caring, and she was very docile, very soft spoken, beautiful, beautiful woman, long black hair. She had like cocoa skin. She almost looked like Pocahontas. She was like a very attractive woman, big, nice body. And she also carried herself very classy, she had almost like a regal look to her. Like you would think she was like a queen or like maybe a princess or something. Like she just had that demeanor about her. That was like her mask. That's how she kind of pulled me in, and then like I said, it would be off and on, and then she would bait me. At the time, I was trying to open a business, owned a cryotherapy wellness center, and I was trying to reopen. And she was like, "Oh, I'll back your business." Like it was just like the devil in sheep's clothing. They giving you everything that you want, like anything that you want, And so it's like you get trapped into that, or I got trapped into it, or should I say? And so like I said, every time I was about to leave her, something would happen. Something else would happen. And so at one point, being that she was a dentist, she agreed to do my teeth. And like she did all veneers on my teeth, which was very expensive. And I would notice that after she did my teeth, it took a couple months, but after she did that every time we had a fight, it was like she knew I was going to break up with her. Like, for example, a tooth would fall out when I was like, I had enough. A tooth would fall out, and then I would have a reason to go back to her, right? There was many occasions like that. That happened at least 6 times, where every time I was about to leave, a tooth would fall out. I noticed that like my digestion was different. I believe she was putting something in my food. She always wanted to cook for me, and she cooked very well. Her family was from like New Orleans, so she cooked very well, like Southern food, and really spicy, great cook. But I believe she was putting something in my food, and I believe that's another way that they get into your body and get into your spiritual body. And so as she kept moving her stuff in, I started to notice like her bookshelf and some of her readings. And her readings were like, black magic, a lot of ancient Egyptian occultism, things on deities, witchcraft, just there was also a lot of metaphysical books as well. She had one book that was worth over $800. Like, this was like out of print, like really. And I asked her, like, well, are you into this stuff? Why would you have all this? And she's like, oh, I'm just building my metaphysical library. But what she was doing, she was becoming a master. Like, when I say this woman was a occult master, and I'm talking the things she could do are movie worthy, you know. And so we kept going down the road. And so one night I asked her, because when we first met, she told me that she was brought up in a church called Eckankar, which was one of a spiritual church like in the 70s and 80s. And that when she went to live with her father introduced her into this church. And a little bit that she did tell me at that point was that when she was a kid, they'd be sitting in the pews, and she said people would walk by and they would shock them. And I said, shock them? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I would just shock the people. I'm like, well, how do you do that? She's like, oh, it's just, something we learned, like how to shock people. And she's like, but me and my friend, we got in a lot of trouble. We were told if we ever did that in public again, that we would be in big trouble, and we could never do that again. Nobody could know. And I'm like, I really fully didn't understand it, because at that time, once again, I was naive, and I only really believed that people who are spiritual were mostly of the light. I know there's people who are evil and demonic, but most of the people I had seen weren't evil to this degree. This is someone who is dark, but wears the mask well. I mean, very dark. And so one night we were sitting, I remember we were drinking some wine, and we were sitting in the bed, and she's like, and we started talking about Eckhart again. And she's like, well, you want to try a spiritual exercise? I was like, well, what is that? She's like, well, you just focus on this blue light, and we do a chant, say Hugh, and then that chant will bring you closer to you just imagine yourself going to the blue light. The blue light, she said, was God, or like the universe. And so I was, once again, still naive, still believing that she was not who she really was, because she played it off so well, and also had the woe is me and need a savior, and that was her mentality. And so we started doing the meditation. I closed my eyes, and at some point I get like paralysis, and like I feel like I can't stop going towards the blue light in meditation. And just as I was about to get to the light, something in my spirit just screamed out, "No!" Just loud like that. And I jumped up out of the bed, and I got up, and I went in the kitchen and splashed some water on my face. And I looked out the window. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, something is just not, like, it's so subtle that you don't really know. You think you know, but you really, unless you're versed or you have somebody who knows, you would never know. Something like that. Like, and I believe that kind of opened me up to her world of this entity or whatever she works with. And that was like the beginning, right? And I remember looking down in the glass of wine I had, and there was like a spider web in the glass. It was amazing. It looked just like a spider web and bubbles in the wine. And so, at that point, that is exactly how I felt. I felt like I was caught in a spider web, and I was so entangled, I didn't know how to get out. So I started trying to look for apartments. Everything that I tried to do, it just somehow, like, it would fall through, or it was like a series of just bad luck, and I couldn't get away at the time. And I know people say, "Oh, you could have just got," but I really had nowhere to go, and I couldn't get away. And so I kind of stayed, and it was toxic. I can say that, but it was like, also in some ways I was getting what I thought I wanted in life. And so we opened the wellness center not too long after that, and got that going. In the beginning, it was going really well. She was like a part-time partner in it, and I was kind of running the show. So that's what it was, my dream. Like she had given me my dream, and from that I had like a sense of loyalty. Like, she kind of backed the deal. Like, she believed in me enough to do that. And there was a part of her that, as crazy as it sounds, she like really loved me, which is crazy. But she did. She was like, she loved me, but she was so envious of me that she hated me and wanted to destroy me. So every time that I would come up a little bit, she would do whatever magic or spell she would do to kind of keep me down. Like I could only come up a certain level, but then she would knock my legs out, and she had the power to do that. And it's like at some point, I just felt like I was always being watched. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, like you just like you turn around like somebody's there, and I would find out that they can do that. It's called remote viewing, where they're so deep into your psyche, into your mind, that they can see you and not even be there. And you can Google it, look it up. I implore you to look it up and find out about this stuff, because it's hidden, and that's what occultism is. It means what is hidden. And these people have manipulated, they're using dark energies, they're using spell work, and people don't even know. I swear to you, there's probably so many people under attack right now, they don't even know. Because they've never, maybe they're not even spiritually awakened enough to know, but they just don't know. So we kept going, and then one night I remember, and I think this was like the breaking point where I guess maybe she couldn't hide it no more. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would feel like a static feeling, like almost like if you rub the carpet. I feel it on my feet, I feel it on my hands sometimes, and then I would feel like almost like a jab, like somebody punctured me in the bottom of my foot with like a knife. And then I would feel like I was just leaking energy. And I'd be like, why do I feel this way? I'd wake up so drained, completely tired, like I could barely get out of bed. And this went on for some time because I really couldn't figure out what was going on. And so one night I woke up in the middle of the night, and she was tapping on my back with 3 fingers like this. And it was like she was tapping like this, but with 3 fingers, which is called a mudra. And she was tapping in the middle of my back near my thoracic area. And she was tapping kind of hard. So I woke up, I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, why are you tapping me? And she's like, oh, it's just a nervous condition. It's just, don't worry about it. And after that night, it was like, that's when things just got haywire. Like I woke up, I couldn't even get out of bed. I had to sleep till like 12 or 1 o'clock. I've never felt that weak in my life. It was like she had put a hole in my aura, and that's exactly what she did. And so the next day I got up and I got on YouTube, and I looked up Eckankart. I was like, I got to find out what this is about. And so lo and behold, sure enough, it comes up, Eckankart was a cult, right? It was a cult, and I believe his name is Harold Klimp. He was a leader, and basically what he did is he went to Egypt and stole ancient Egyptian magic, basically, and made it his own and created this religion. And that what the guy was saying was that blue light that she was having me go to was not actually God, but it was actually him who was a demon. And you can Google it. I'll put it in the bottom, but you can Google the story. It's an amazing story. There's actually a class action suit against this occult, and that's how serious it was. And she grew up in this, right? And then, so he went on and he told the story. It was like he was telling my story. He's like, what they do is they send out people who are possessed by this entity or serve this entity. And they send them out to find, she said it could be your wife, your husband, your boyfriend. And their job is to weaken you. Their job is to just every night drain you. She said for some people, it could take 10, 20 years. For me, luckily it was short, but it could take, up to, 20 years, and you just don't know why the life is being sucked out of you and you feel so weak and you can't really put your finger on it. You just ask yourself, why is this happening to me? And so then he went into detail, and he says what they do is they put their 3 fingers and they tap on an area of your body and they create a do-it. That's what he said. And that's a hole in which the entity can enter your body and like feed on it. And so this is when I begin my study, because there was no one I could really talk to about that. They would have thought it was insane if I told them about it. And I still kind of she would say, it went on, and I would be like, I was like, listen, you have to stop doing whatever you're doing, because It's making me tired. And she was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm always asleep. That was like her scapegoat. I'm not doing anything. I'm sleeping. Because it only would happen at night between 3 and 5 in the morning. And she's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm asleep. And that was like her, her way out. And she, really was asleep. And so this is when I got really like, I felt like I needed to protect myself. So I started studying different, protection techniques and doing different things. And at some point where I learned a little stuff from, different teachings, that I could somewhat protect myself, or at least what I would call shield myself, so that I wouldn't be drained. And so at that point, the attacks became vicious. And I mean, vicious. Like I would feel like at some times that I had one instance where I felt like I was being energetically whipped. Like I would feel like almost like a slash of a whip on my side of my leg, then the other side. And this, everywhere the slash comes, it was on my back, my arms. It was like I was leaking energy. Like it felt like almost like a whip had hit me in that spot. I would wake up sore all over my body, just extremely tired and drained. And by this point, at this time, like, I think that she had done spell work. This is something called mind mapping, where they can get into your mental mind, and you can also Google that as well. And they can find out what you fear, or find out like what triggers you. And their goal is to keep you tired. Like sleep deprivation is their number one goal. And even the guy in the video says that the leader, he could do it so well. He could physically, spiritually size you up in 2 minutes. He could see your weaknesses, know where to penetrate, know where to get into your body. And before you know it, he had complete control of your body. He would have so much control of your body that after you had been weakened to that state, he could send you a thought to think you would have a heart attack and you would die. And there's even accounts of other members of Eckankar what that happened to. So it's a very powerful, dark magician, and they really are out here controlling people. And you'll be surprised that if you go to like meetup.com, Eckankar is still out here today doing the same thing. Some people will say it's good, but with this woman, she was complete. She was evil. I have never met a more evil person in my life. I mean, this demonic. And it was like she was Jekyll and Hyde, because 1 minute she would be demonic, and then the next minute she would be so sweet. And so you get, after a while, you feel like you can't get away. That's how I felt like. And so you just kind of just went along with it, because I didn't have enough knowledge to get away. And so the attacks just kept getting worse. I mean, I've witnessed, I've woken over quick, and I've seen her levitate back into the bed. Like, this is how serious it was. And she would say that she astral travels, which means that she goes to other planes of existence. And she's like, oh, I go to a different world every night. And I'm like, no, I used to say that's black magic. I don't want anything to do with that or whatever. I don't want to learn that. And she would always try to, like, it was like she was trying to convert me, like she saw my light. She knew that I was of the light. And not that I was a Christian, but I was of the light. I didn't want to do anything evil. I believe that God put me here to be of the light and to save people and help people. And I just feel like I was chosen for something better than that. And so it would be two more attempts. One attempt, I had a vision or a dream where I was being dragged to this pit. And they can get into your dreams as well. And I was being forced, and once again I had the paralysis, and I couldn't stop. And then and I was about to fall into the pit, and once again my soul said no, and it stopped. And I woke up and I got up out of the bed. I'm like, I gotta get away from this. I gotta get away from this. Then a few months later, there would be another case where I was being dragged. It was just like a cavern or a cave, and I was being dragged down this alleyway. And the closer I got to whatever it was, it got darker and colder. And I'm holding on it, but I can't, because it's like something was pulling me. It was like I was like hypnotized, like I said, and it was trying to bring me to this energy again. And then something like a pocket door slid in front of me and cut me off, once again said no. And so things got so bad. I mean, it was it was unbearable at times. And I got so tired that we ended up sleeping we had to sleep in other rooms because it just got so crazy. And this is when the real first attack happened. Like the other attacks were, I would just say, like I felt them and I could feel them, and I thought it was like maybe the universe teaching me how to fight these type of people. They say that sometimes what you go through is what you're supposed to help others, and I think that's what I'm doing by telling this story. So anyway, so we slept in different. She actually slept on the couch and I slept in the bedroom. And I told her, listen, I said, don't come in here tonight. I'm sleeping in here. You sleep out here until we can figure this out. I was like, because I was so drained I couldn't take one more day. Thought I would have died. And so I closed the door, and I knew that she was going to come in the room. So about 3:00 in the morning, I see the door crack open, and I just see her face, and she has like this empty blank look on her face, like she wasn't even there. It was whatever it was, she wasn't there. And so I knew, I was just like, get out of here. And she closed the door quick. But I knew she had let it in, or whatever it is. So I started getting like a shortness of breath. I started feeling like tired, like feeling real anxious. Like that's what they do. They try to instill anxiety into you with fear, because fear weakens your aura. And that's how they can penetrate. It helps them to penetrate into your aura. So I started getting shortness of breath, like almost like I was having an asthma attack. So I get up and I go into the other bedroom. She's still on the couch. And so I closed the door and I lay down, and I just knew that she was going to come, or whatever was with her was going to come. It was just a matter of time. And so I'm asleep, and I was trying not to, I'm about to fall asleep, and I'm trying to stay awake. I'm really tired. It's maybe like 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, probably at 4:30. And the door, sure enough, cracks open again, and she closes it. And so I just sit there, and I'm trying to stay up, and I'm so drained and tired, and I fall asleep. As soon as I fell asleep, all I can say is an energy. There was no person in the room. An energy jumped on me, and it put its elbow in my throat and held me down to the bed and was trying to strangle me. And because of my weakened state, that I was not strong enough to fight back. I couldn't defend myself, and it really was trying to kill me. And I finally mustered up enough strength, and I just punched it off me like this, and I just felt like this energy lift up off me. And I sat up in the bed, and I was like, holy shit. I just kept saying, what the hell was that? Like, holy shit. And I just sat there for like a few minutes in the bed, just trying to get my composure. And for some reason, I don't know why, whenever I tell somebody that story, like, they're like, why didn't you just run out the house? It's like I wasn't scared. I don't know why I wasn't scared. To this day, I don't know why I wasn't scared, but I wasn't. It's like almost like it was something that I did before, and that's why I wasn't as fearful probably as other people would have been. So about 5 minutes later, she's screaming at the top of her lungs. She comes running into the room. She's like, we got to get out of here. There's something in here. It just attacked me. I can't breathe. We got to go stay at a hotel. We have to get out of here now. And I just closed the door on her, and I didn't say anything. And that was like the first real like where I without a shadow of a doubt believe in spiritual attacks, and that things like this can happen to you, and that was the first time. And then it got so frequent that I could walk it, like maybe she'd be in the bedroom or whatever. I could walk in the door and just close the door, and the door would crack open like somebody just walked in the door, like an entity or spirit would walk in the door. And so the hardest part was that at some point we started talking about this, and she seemed like she really wanted to get help, that she really wanted to heal from this. At some point she believed some of what I was saying was true about the attacks, but she still was saying that she didn't know what she was doing. So we'd find a psychic who knew about this type of stuff or whatever. And so I told him the story of what happened, and he's like, well, by any chance, and I had him on speaker as he was doing the session, and he said, well, by any chance is she there? Can I talk to her? And he's like, yeah. She's like, so he introduced herself, and she was like, He's like, well, I gotta ask you something. He's like, do you work with deities, right? And then he just started naming these deities off one by one by one. And she was like, yes, I work with him. Yes, I work with him. Yes, I work with him. And I'm just like, all this time you've been lying, but now you're telling me you're working with deities or whatever. And so he just kept naming off. And he's like, this is what the problem is. He's like, when you were she was with her ex-husband and he wouldn't leave. And this is when I guess she started dabbling in this stuff. And so she created an altar and she prayed to these deities and she would give them offerings. A lot of the deities, like the Orishas, the African deities, and she would give them tobacco and rum, and she would worship them. And so she opened up these portals to get him to leave, which it worked. But this was over 10 years later, and she didn't really know what she was doing, so she never really closed the altars. And I would come to find out that she actually had altars in the house as well, which I thought she was just into crystals, but they're actually altars as well. And so the guy said, listen, you have to close those altars. That's why, all these attacks and stuff were happening or whatever. And so she's like, okay, I'll close them. And it was like, there was a part of her that, like, maybe she never had nobody who was trying to save her or help her. Like, even her mother was like a voodoo priestess from New Orleans. You know what I mean? So maybe she just never had nobody who was good, who was of the light. She just always been surrounded around darkness and dark people. And that's just in her bloodline, But it was something in her that seemed like she wanted to be saved. Or maybe that was just her ploy to keep me there longer, to try to help her. And so he told her to shut everything down, and she said she did. And so that night I came in, I said, well, did you do what he said? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, but I sent them out on another mission. I'm like, what? And she's like, I sent them out on another mission. And I was like, well, what mission did you send them on? She's like, to help me beat this case with the lady that got killed at the chair. And I just looked at her like I knew that she was like gone. Like there was no saving her at all. She was truly on the other side. But there was still a part of me that had sympathy for her, because it was like, if I didn't save her, if I didn't help her, she was done. She was definitely going to the dark side and never would come back, And so it just got like, it was a lot. And but it also taught me something in me, is that, you have to have enough self-love for yourself not to like try to save someone so much that you're not loving yourself. And I think that's onus on me, because that's what I think I did, because I've always been that type to, be in codependent relationships, or feel like I can help somebody, or just give, or try to, save. And it always takes more than it gives from you, and to the point where you're drained. And that's also a lot of narcissistic dynamics. And I think I've been in, many of those relationships that also affected it. So like in hindsight, in some ways, it's like a learning lesson about becoming a master of narcissists and how they move, and understanding all the manipulation that goes on with that. So it would go on a little longer, and then there was many other events that happened. It was too long to tell you in one session, but I finally, it got bad. I mean, it was so bad that I had to get out. If I didn't leave that day, I would not be here talking to you right now. So I packed everything up, and at the time I went and stayed with a ex-girlfriend of mine, and got everything out in one day. And I was just like, I was like, okay, I'm away from this. And I was a shadow of myself. My blood pressure was over 200. I was a shadow of myself. And I just remember getting to her house, and I just had to go for a walk. Like, I didn't realize how bad things have gotten, how like it almost was taking my life. That's how bad the attacks and everything had gotten. And I thought that I was free, because I had gotten away from her presence. She couldn't touch me anymore. And I was like, okay, you're free now. You just gotta heal, get back together. But the thing is that she still could attack me from not even being there. The attacks still continued. So things didn't work out there. And then I noticed that my luck changed, and like everything just like just like her luck was so bad and it was like a black cloud, my luck, and I usually have good luck, just started to change. Like everything was going wrong. Business was going wrong. Started having car problems, having health problems, having money problems. And it just was like, never in my life have I had this much bad luck. And I'm like, why is all this happening? So I went to a lady, and she's also like a psychic lady. And she told me that she had put bounding spells on me, and to bound my money, to bound my love life, and that if I didn't do nothing, that, this could break me and like ruin my entire life. And, you got to be careful with some of these people. She actually asked me for $10,000 to get this off me. And I'm like, well, no, I can't do that. And so that was like I guess the pinnacle point of me saying, okay, I need to learn this stuff. I need to figure out what I need to do to defend myself, because I can't pay these people, $10,000 to fight this. And I don't really even know what I'm fighting here. And so I started studying. I started studying some of the stuff she studied. I started working with meditation. I started learning, different rituals and just learning. And it took a long time, because I always wanted to be of the light and always not, just do what's good or what they call the right path. And she was deep of the left path. And so the conclusion that I came to was that white protection or white magic, for my case, can only be used for protection, right? And at the time, it was like I was in a heavyweight fight with the champion of the world, and this was my first boxing match. So I just kept getting beat up, and at some point you have to learn how to protect yourself, and so you have to. It's like you're baptized by finding a solution, because you can no longer live this way, and if you do not find the answer, you will die. I can promise you. I'm sure there's many people who have lost their life to this and have no idea what because they just weren't spiritually awakened enough to search for the truth. And I share this because I'm sure somebody's going to resonate with something that I'm saying here, and that I hope that you don't let it get too far gone where you can't come back, or you're so beaten that your body is so weakened that you can't heal from what you've been through. And I'm still healing. Like, the attacks, even where I'm at now, have even happened here. Like, it is unreal. And it's like, it's by design that if you tell anyone, they will think you crazy. And that is why I'm speaking out about it, because the truth needs to be revealed. Like, these people need to be brought into the light. People need to know what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and how evil they are, and how long it's been going on. I mean, you can look around the world. These people, these occults, are being exposed. Look at Puffy. Look at all the other stars and rappers, how it's coming out that they're into. It's the same stuff. It's the same exact stuff. But and another thing is that these people were very, very wealthy. I mean, extremely wealthy, and that they belong to societies, similar to like the Illuminati, and they're just dark people, And I'm just trying to put this out there to save people who have no idea, So I'm going to leave it there. But if you guys have any questions, or if you need help with your current situation, please check me out at divinesolutions.com. I offer spiritual sessions. I also can help you with protection, magic, or things. It just depends on your situation. Every situation is different. And I hope that this helps and saves somebody's life. Ashe.